page. So hopefully that won't happen, but if it does, we have a backup plan. Let's see. So I see a lot of faces that I know and people that we've spoken with, but I just want to do a quick introduction for Gabrielle and myself. We own not Puerto Morelos. We don't own the town. We own Runaway Realty in Puerto Morelos, which is a real estate agency that we started 4 years ago. We just had our 4-year anniversary, and we love it. And I am celebrating my 9th year full-time living in Puerto Morelos this month, sorry, later on this week. So I'm pretty excited about that. I can't believe it. It's 9 years, and I never have second guess moving here. My Spanish is terrible still, so that's a bummer. But other than that, life is good. Even with a Mexican husband, my Spanish is bad. I am originally from Colorado, and I practiced law in Colorado for 20 years. And then through a series of events, found myself at a crossroads. My mother passed away, and I came here to plan her funeral. Ended up meeting with a real estate agent who talked me into coming in to work with her, even though I'd never sold anything in my life. And I fell in love with it. I fell in love with this career. I find it way more satisfying than practicing law ever was. And so for me, this has become home, and this has become my favorite part of my life. So it's been pretty amazing, and I feel really thankful for that. And Gabrielle, do you want to give your little bio?
Well, it's funny because it's not very difficult, I believe, for anyone just decide to move to a beautiful place wherever you came from, just even for a visit or just to see some kind of places. In my case, my mother is original from Yucatan, so I've been traveling here since I was very, very young. And finally, there's like 32 years ago, I decided to move, or no more than moved. I decided to came only for 10 days. And then suddenly I start like a new life. That's the beauty of the thing. And I think, and I always believe that sometimes for some of us, takes time to think, to have a plan, or to make a decision. Not really was my case, as I said, only took 10 days to decide I want to live here. And then I started moving around the area. I have a beautiful experience living here in Puerto Morelos, more than in other places, because here, basically, in my own experience, as I said, you have here the beauty of being living in this kind of community is like you have a name, basically. So wherever you go, it's like amazing seeing people like recognize your face, and knowing part of your history, eventually became friends. And more than that, sometimes in many cases, became part of your family. That's to me like the beauty of living in a beautiful place with beautiful people. The experience about being a realtor is amazing also. Was a big jump for me because I used to manage fine dining restaurants. So became being first the boss to start being like the golfer wasn't easy, but honestly it has been an amazing experience, as I said, because my big afraid was like, how are you gonna meet new people when you meet new people every night or every day, depends on the shift that you're working as a real estate agent. But it has been a beautiful, beautiful experience, honestly, like serving, helping, or trying to help and trying to serve in the best way. It has been like a beautiful, beautiful way to sometimes receive like in a kind of love in your life. That's amazing. Definitely, that's amazing.
That's awesome. I think we kind of got where everybody is, and please drop it in the chat box too, because I want to keep track of where everybody's coming from. Let me admit these late people. And I just wanted to go over kind of an agenda of what I wanted to cover tonight. This meeting is kind of different every time we do it, but I have kind of a general spiel that I want to go over. And welcome, guys. Welcome, new people. We're going to talk about the process of buying and owning property in Mexico. There's a lot of misconceptions about that. We are going to briefly touch on immigration and visa issues and talk about renting in Puerto Morelos and just some general concepts about renting that you need to keep in mind, and then some things to consider when you're planning to move. I hope we can get through all that. We might not be able to, depending on what your questions are, but that's okay, because this is designed to answer what you want to know. And every meeting is different. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and kind of get into this ownership issue. I don't know if you guys saw today, I posted this kind of quiz thing about, which one of these statements is true about, Americans can't buy in Mexico, Americans and Canadians can't own on the beach. Well, you don't really own your property in Mexico, you lease it. What's the other one? I mean, I've heard so many. Oh, you have to carry actual cash into the country to pay for property. I know that you guys are laughing because you know that this is true. There's so much information out there that just doesn't really make any sense. So let me start from the beginning. Yes, foreigners can own property in Mexico. And in most of Mexico, you own it just directly as you would in the US, Canada, Europe, anywhere around the world. The Mexico has, through its constitution though, limited or prohibited foreign ownership of property along its borders. That is 100 kilometers from a land border and 50 kilometers from a sea border is what is called the restricted zone in Mexico. In that area, originally foreigners couldn't own property at all. Now, for about 40 years, the government has said, we want to encourage foreign investment, we really want it, but we don't want to change our constitution. So they created a vehicle called a fideicomiso, really weird word, fideicomiso, and that is an asset trust that was created specifically for the purpose of allowing foreigners to own properties. So it's not a trick, it's not a workaround, it's not like something sketchy. The government created it to allow and encourage foreign ownership. It's not really any different from any other kind of ownership. It's a legal fiction created to get around the Constitution. When you own a property in a fideicomiso, you are the primary beneficiaries of the trust. Typically, it's a husband and wife or domestic partnership. You two people are the primary beneficiaries of the trust. And then within the terms of the trust, you name your secondary beneficiaries. So if there's two primary beneficiaries, when one primary passes away, it goes to the other primary beneficiary. When both pass away, it goes to the secondary beneficiaries. The beauty of this is it keeps you out of a probate court in a foreign country, because no country is obligated to honor the wishes of a foreign will. So this is the safest way for you to protect your ownership rights of your heirs. So that is the beauty of the trust. The bummer of the trust is that it costs money to set up and it costs money every year to maintain. It costs about $1,500 to $2,000 to set up a trust, a fideicomiso. You either are going to set it up or transfer it. If you're buying from another foreigner, you could just transfer their trust. It's about the same cost. So it's really no savings to do it any one way over the other. And then it's about $500 a year, US dollars a year, to pay the annual fee for the trust. But let me get back to the bank. So the bank, so you own the trust and there's a Mexican bank as a trustee. The bank is the administrator of the trust. The bank has no rights to your property. They can't, they're not like a mortgage lender. They can't loan against your property. They can't borrow against your property. They can't enter your property. They don't get to tell you what to do with your property. Their only function is to send you a bill once a year. So they really don't do anything. And so, people don't love it. People don't love having to own it in an asset trust. People don't love having to pay for that. But right now, this is what we have. Over the last few legislative sessions, the Mexican government has considered and floated the idea of changing the Constitution because they realize that this prohibition and the requirement of the fideicomiso, people don't like it. People, you know, feel uncomfortable with it. It's a different way to own than most of us are used to. But changing the Constitution, Gabrielle, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you have to ratify it in every state of Mexico. And so
Yes.
they've been unable to push that through. And when you think about it, it makes sense because, well, a couple of reasons. One is that the banks are making a huge amount of money. Imagine that you have to have a trust for every property a foreigner buys in Mexico in the restricted zone, which are along the beaches. So they're making some good money. And the other one is, you know, there is this strong sense of national pride, and Mexico was invaded. So a country that has gone through that has, you know, a real interest in continuing to protect the border. So it makes sense in that way. And so there is some pushback on that front as well. Although I think what I'm hearing is it's mostly the economic front. But it could change. I don't know when, but right now this is the way that we have it. And it's a nice way, I mean, if you look at the bright side, it's a nice way to protect your property and not have to go into probate court. What else about the fideicomiso? The trust lasts for 50 years and it's automatically renewable for another 50-year term unless you've been convicted of a crime involving the federal crime involving the property. In that case, the government can refuse to extend the trust. Are there any questions about the fideicomiso?
No.
Looking down here.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
Is this the same if you buy a condo?
Yeah, any property that you buy in the restricted zone, if you're not Mexican, you're going to own it in a fideicomiso.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else?
I'm Kristin, by the way, sorry.
Hi, Kristin. No, your name shows up, so that's cool. Thank you. So yeah, one of the things floating out there is this notion that you can get around the fideicomiso requirement by forming a Mexican corporation. That's not true. The Mexican government has been very clear that the only way foreigners are to own property is in the asset trust. For a time before there was the internet, lawyers here tried to convince people not to use the fideicomiso. They made it sound like it was a huge deal and it was very difficult and that it would be cheaper to open a corporation. Well, the reason they did that was because if you open a corporation, you pay the lawyer. If you open a fideicomiso, you pay the bank. So it was in the lawyer's best interest to get you to open a corporation. That was never good advice, and it has become even worse advice over time. The minute you open a Mexican corporation, you are opening yourself up to, if you're an American, you've opened yourself up to reporting requirements to the IRS and potential tax liability. I don't know if that's the same for Canadians, it may be. But you also have opened yourself up to the requirement to file taxes in Mexico every month, which means you have to hire an accountant to file it every month. So it's just, it doesn't make any sense to have a corporation. The only time you would ever want to open a Mexican corporation to own real estate here is if you were like buying the property as a bed and breakfast or something like that, or it's a salon or you're a mechanic. In that case, it may be appropriate for you to open a corporation, but even then I would say talk to an accountant, talk to an attorney, really make sure that that's how you want to own the property, because it does not benefit you in many ways. And in fact, it even takes away, when you sell property here, if you own it for 3 years and become a permanent resident visa holder, you have a partial exemption against capital gains tax. You lose that if it's in a corporation. So it's better to not be in a corporation.
Does that include Airbnb purposes as well?
Yeah, you don't need a corporation for that. So you can do Airbnb just with under your fideicomiso. You can rent out your property. Yeah. You don't need a corporation. Any other questions about that point? No?
Kim, I've got a question about capital gains taxes. Can you repeat what you just said about there's a partial exemption on the capital gains taxes if it is held in fideicomiso?
Right. So if you're a person who owns property in the fideicomiso, you hold the property for 3 years and you're a permanent resident at the time of sale, you can qualify for a partial exemption against your, it's called, I mean, it is a capital gains tax, but it's kind of a hybrid here, and it's called ISR, and it's really more of an income tax. But in general, you get a partial exemption against that if you become a permanent resident before you sell.
All right, thank you.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yes.
So corporations can't take advantage of that. It's for people. You may want to consider, if you have a group of people that are going to buy a property, sometimes a bunch of family members or maybe 2 couples want to go in together and buy a property. If you were going to do that, I would open a corporation at home. So open a corporation in the US or in Canada or wherever you're from, have the members of the corporation there, have your stock there, and then the corporation will be the primary beneficiary of the trust. And the reason for that is anytime you change the beneficiary of the trust, you have expenses. So for example, this has just happened. Actually, both of these happened this year. One was an example
Last
where
year.
2 people, 2020, yeah, not 2021. 2 couples went together to buy a property here. They didn't work with an agent or a lawyer, which I would never recommend. Immediately after, like within a year after buying, one couple wanted out. So the other couple bought them out. That part was not so hard. What was hard was that triggered a sale. So they had to pay purchase acquisition taxes and capital gains taxes on that change of ownership, even though all their names were on the title originally, because they were changing the beneficiaries under some new tax law. That was a taxable event. In another situation sale that we have going right now, there's 2 primary beneficiaries and one has passed away. And even in that instance, when it goes to the other primary beneficiary, they're calling that a taxable event and they're charging for that. So if you have multiple people going in on a property, I would consider and talk to a lawyer here and a lawyer in the US about how you can set that up so that if you have a death or changes in the ownership that need to happen, that can happen in the corporation and everything just stays stable here. You're not triggering any more tax implications. Does that make sense? Anyone? Anyone? All right, I was gonna see if there's any questions. All right, any questions about kind of how you own property here?
If you needed a loan, is there a bank that'll give you a loan there?
We're about to cover that, but
Oh,
the
okay.
answer is no.
Okay.
Unfortunately. So kind of the next step is I wanted to go over kind of the buying process. Some of you who are on here have just gone through this with us, so you are very fresh off this process. Yay. And Pam's in it right now and Janine's in it right now. So it's a little tricky here. So I guess just to start with, there's no MLS in this part of Mexico, and comparable sales information is not available publicly. So you can't go to the city and say, here's the address of a house that recently sold, how much did it sell for? Nor can you go to the city and say, I want to buy that empty lot and I need to know who owns it. All of that is private and it's very strictly protected. So, so then how do you know what a property's worth in Puerto Morelos or in Quintana Roo, basically, and all of the Riviera Maya? That's when it is so important to work with an experienced agent, because, for example, because Gabrielle and I have been working here the last 4 years, and I've been working here the last 9, I have my own database of what things actually sold for. So I know in different areas what is a reasonable price, what's an unreasonable price. You know, we have at least that information to go on. even though we don't have a giant source of information like you do in US and Canada. And so that can help. But the reality is that sellers here, because they're not pressured by that information, and also because they're not pressured by having a loan because there's no mortgages, they often will just pick a price and just wait until they get it. So that can also be very frustrating to someone who wants to buy property, because you can say, well, but I don't think your price is reasonable, Mr. Seller, because look at this and this and this, and they just don't care. They're just going to wait until they get it. So it can be quite a challenge to understand that part of it. Jeez, my phone's making noise. After I told everyone to silence their phones, mine's making noise. So that is a little tricky. There's many of you probably are familiar with Point Two Homes, which is a big website that has a bunch of listings for this area and has kind of become a de facto MLS. The problem with Point Two Homes is they let anyone post properties. So if you've spent any time on there, you've seen the same properties over and over and over, many at different prices, all of them with false information. Like it's almost, it used to be a useful tool and now it's almost the opposite of a useful tool. So yes, you can find listings on there. I would not get excited about them until we've been able to check them out and make sure if they're real. Is that the real listing agent? Is that the real price? Does anyone have the paperwork for that property in order to sell it? Like that part can be a little bit tricky. But assuming we get through that, assuming we find the perfect property for you and ta-da, you're ready to make an offer, that part of the process is very similar to what you're probably already used to. We make a written offer and we sign it. We, offer earnest money, although you don't pay it right away. You would write all that up in your offer and you would tell the seller when you think you can close, when you want to close. The sellers typically respond in writing as well, and they'll either accept or counter offer, and we just negotiate that way. Once we come to an agreement on price and terms, we would then proceed to open up an escrow account. We highly recommend that you use escrow. It's really not something that was very typical here. It's a product that we kind of brought from the US and Canada. Actually in Canada, I think you use trust accounts, you don't use escrow accounts. It's the same thing. It's an account managed by a third party so that neither party can take the money out of it until closing. So it protects your funds until closing. So after we set up the escrow account, then the closing attorney will do the due diligence and check on the title and get all that stuff rolling. And in your transaction, you're going to have a closing attorney, a notario who is also an attorney, but an attorney that's gone on to get a special designation so that they're like almost a semi-governmental official. They're the only ones who can transfer real property. So every transaction involves a notario. But the notario, it's super important to understand, doesn't have any obligation to protect you. They don't protect anyone in the transaction. They kind of just do what they're told. I mean, they should notify you if something really egregious is happening, but they don't have to. So it's so important. I can't stress it enough that you have to have your own attorney in a transaction. Attorneys don't cost that much here. And I would just think of it as buying a title insurance policy because that's not available. You want to have an attorney on your side who speaks Spanish, reads Spanish, understands Mexican real estate law, and can advise you on what you're signing. I hear all the time people, oh, Kim, but my friend Jose told me that I just go directly to the notary and it'll be cheaper. And the reality is, yes, it will be cheaper, but you're not protected. And the consequence of not being protected is not that you're going to sue somebody or threaten to sue somebody and they're going to give you your money back. You're not getting your money back. So you need to be as careful and protective of yourself up front as you possibly can be. So yes, it is possible to go directly to a notario. Don't do it because you don't have any protection. Does anyone have any questions about that, about the kind of the buying process?
I do again.
Uh-huh.
So like in Canada, is there like a property tax to pay when you're buying a house, a separate dwelling?
Yeah,
So-
so part of your closing costs in a transaction as a buyer is you're gonna pay purchase acquisition taxes. You'll pay for the notario, you'll pay for your closing attorney. You will pay for either to set up or transfer the fideicomiso. And you'll pay registration fees, and you'll pay the first year annual fee for the fideicomiso. And then your ongoing cost of ownership do include an annual property tax. I'm not sure if that's what you're asking, Kristin. Yeah, okay, so yeah. So so they really, okay, so let me back up because we're talking about closing costs now.
Sorry, Kim, I think what she's referring to is the property transfer tax that we pay here in Canada.
Well, there's
Oh.
both. There's both. So if I moved in my house in Canada in July and then we still had to pay taxes for the property from July to December, that would be transferred for me to pay and then continue to pay taxes of the house for my remainder of living here.
So there's purchase acquisition taxes, which are triggered at the sale. And then you will reimburse the seller if they've paid the whole year in advance of property taxes. You'll reimburse, we'll prorate it to the date of closing. They'll
And
pay for the part.
what is the percentage of the purchase acquisition tax?
Purchase acquisition tax is 3.3% in Puerto Morelos.
Thank you.
Sure. So let me back up to that part, the closing costs. So closing costs here are paid by the buyer, and they can be quite steep. You've kind of heard the list of things that is included. Some of those are flat fees. The cost of the fideicomiso is the same, whether you're buying a $3 million property or a $50,000 property. The annual fee is the same, regardless of the size of your property. The purchase acquisition taxes change, are keyed to the purchase price. The registration fees are flat. So, and the notario charges whatever they want to basically, but it's usually tied into the purchase price. So on a $1 million property, US dollar property, you're gonna pay around 6% of the purchase price, 5 to 6% in closing costs. At a $60,000 property, I think you're gonna pay, it's closer to, I think 12, 13%. Just because some of those are just flat fees that are gonna apply no matter what. So it's important that you are aware that you're gonna be paying the taxes kind of before you, or not taxes, paying the closing costs before you start looking at property, because that can be a big chunk, right? Like on a $300,000 property, the taxes are around 8 to 9%, that's another $20,000. So you're really looking for if 300 is your total budget, you're really looking for a 260, 270, 280 house. Any questions about that? Anyone? All right.
Actually, Kim, I
Uh-huh.
do. So Secure Title, they do all of those services, right? So they are the attorney plus the title plus Notaria, they do all of that.
That's who we use for that. Mhm.
And they're like an all-in-one. So you just pay them one set fee and they cover all of those things. So they would be the attorney for us.
Yeah, so I've set you up with Secure Title and they're going to be your closing attorney and they have the escrow and they're going to coordinate with the notario.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's all those pieces in one place. And really, there are lots of attorneys and law firms here. We have been through a lot of them, Gabrielle. That's why my hair is gray. We honestly strongly recommend using the team that we work with. We have always regretted it when we haven't used them for various reasons, mistakes, just not getting the job done in a timely manner, way too expensive. So we feel really comfortable with this team. we're happy to recommend them. And when you buy with us, we handle all that. Janine is very aggressive. She got in there and called them, which is cool. But we'll handle it for you too. So we'll just set it up and put you in touch and be kind of the go-between between that. But they have attorneys that speak English, and they'll get on the phone with you at any time. And that's super helpful, I think, especially because it's a scary thing, right? You're buying in a foreign country, and you want to have more than just your real estate agent telling you everything's okay. Let's see. Let me back up to, does anyone have any questions on that part of the closing process?
Yes, I do. If I do not buy in Puerto Morales, do other states or other agents like yourself offer the secured title service?
Well, Secure Title is a separate company.
Oh, okay.
So, so you can decide that you want to use them on your own.
Okay. And they're located in Mexico?
There's an office in Secure Title. Riviera Maya is in Playa del Carmen, and then they have offices in Mexico City, and I don't know, Gabrielle, do you know where else they
I think in Los Cabos is the other option, if I'm
go
not
to?
wrong.
Yeah, on the east,
Okay.
on the other coast.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. And I should back up. They have the escrow accounts as well. So they used to only have US dollar escrow accounts, and now they also offer a peso account, which is super handy. Because when you're buying here, you're going to be paying either most likely US dollars or pesos. Sometimes if there's a Canadian seller, the Canadian seller will agree to take Canadian dollars.
At par?
But that doesn't always happen. Well, they'll do the Canadian, they want it keyed to the US dollar amount because most of the properties are priced at US dollars.
That was
And
my
this
joke,
market
Kim.
has developed over time in US dollars. So that can be kind of a challenge if the Canadian dollar's not keeping up.
Kim, sorry, it's Lucy again. Just
Hi.
wondering, do you have inspection companies where you buy a place and then you can have an inspection done before you actually purchase? Like subject to inspection, that sort of thing?
No, so that's an interesting thing. They don't do that here. And the reason is that it's all concrete construction. So there's really not much for an inspector to inspect. We had a guy from Playa del Carmen who had a brilliant idea of starting an inspection company. And I actually thought it was a good idea because people kind of want that because you just don't know. But we hired him, actually, I think we hired him on 2 transactions, and he literally he came and he tested the outlets and charged $500. There's really not much you can do. You can't dig out the plumbing. You can't, I don't know. I mean, there's not a whole lot you can do with concrete construction. You're not worried about measuring the radon in the basement. You're not worried about your roof. Usually it's just a concrete roof. It either leaks or it doesn't. If it does leak, you're going to put a sealer on it. I guess.
So basically just bring a lamp with you and test out all the plugs.
Test out the plugs, yeah. And the reality is you're doing that for your own information because properties are sold as is in almost all cases. They will agree to have the property in working, and everything in good working condition as of the date of closing, but you don't do what you do in the US. I don't know if you do it in Canada where you go in and you start, oh, there's a stain on the wall. You don't go in and do a little checklist and have the seller replace everything and do all that.
Yeah, we do that in Canada too.
Yeah, they don't do that. So it's really, what I tell people is when we go in a property and you can really see that it already needs work or it needs some work, what you do is factor that into your offer. And so you offer what you're willing to pay for the property in the condition that it is right now. Don't ask the seller to do anything because the few times we've done that, and we're not the only ones, we've heard this, the seller, the seller's going to do the cheapest possible thing and probably not what you want them to do. So it's much better for you to just get the property. We'll help you find people to come in and they can make the changes that you want to make. It's it feels weird and different, but it's, in my mind, that's the way to protect your investment rather than trying to rely on them to do it. And then we end up at closing and you're not happy and everything falls apart.
Makes sense. Thank you, Kim.
Sure. I
Hey,
guess,
Ken, real quick, are there any taxes or fees associated with the sale of the property upon exit?
yes. So when you sell property here, there's it's not a straight capital gains tax, it's called ISR, and it's more of an income tax. And worst case scenario, it's 30%. But I don't, well, two things. One is there's a partial exemption if you become a permanent resident visa holder and you hold for 3 years. And the other thing is we work with a team of professionals who can help you reduce. No one's paying 30%. I mean, Gabrielle, no, we've never seen anyone pay anywhere near 30% of the gain, do you think?
Not so.
So on paper, that's the worst case scenario, but the reality is they have a team of people that takes a position on your taxes and you pay much, much less than that. I can't really give you a percentage without having all the figures of a particular property, but there is a tax. It's not 30%. Let me see where I was really quick. So we covered escrow, we covered the peso. I guess the other really primary thing to know is that all sales are cash in most of Mexico. That means that there are no banks offering financing to foreigners either in Mexico or outside of Mexico using property here as collateral for the loan. And the reason for that is that under Mexican real estate law, once you've granted possession to someone, it is really, really difficult to take the property back. So banks are not willing to take the risk that they'll loan you the money, you move into the house, you default on the loan, and they can't repossess the property, and you get to live there forever. It's just very expensive and time consuming to try to repossess property here. That is the same reason that most sellers won't finance, because they face the same problem. If they do a deal with you and you just stop paying, they aren't able to get you out of the property. Sometimes developers in pre-construction will offer some limited financing, and that's typically like 30% down, and you have till the end of construction to pay it off with no interest. But that's like a year, right? Maybe 2, if construction's slow or if they're really in the early planning stages. So that's a bummer and is a unique facet of our market. So it can be very difficult to get into the market because of that. But the opposite side of that coin is we have a great stable market that has weathered many crises with property values intact and in fact increasing. So any questions about that? Anyone?
If it's cash and you're coming from Canada where I am, can you bring a bank draft or how do you pay?
You're gonna wire transfer it into the escrow account.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So everything's done electronically. And actually in the transaction, I should back up to this, everything can be done electronically in a sale except for closing. Someone needs to be physically at the closing table. Either you or someone with your power of attorney needs to appear on the date to sign the paperwork. But everything else we can do with emailing and scanning, FedEx.
Hey, Kim, does the realtor get paid by the seller or the buyer? And what is the percentage?
The realtor gets paid by the seller. And the standard percentage is 6%, but that varies widely because it's Mexico and there's it's kind of the Wild West. Sometimes there are situations where particularly if we're looking at property in the Colonia, you will run into sellers who won't pay any kind of commission and will want you to just work directly with them. Hazardous if you don't speak Spanish and understand Mexican real estate law. So many clients actually, Keith and Bruce and I did kind of a hybrid where we actually did find a realtor who would, a seller who would pay a partial commission and then they paid the rest of it. So basically they hired me as a buyer's agent to complete the transaction. So they'd have representation. And that works perfectly well too. And in that case, we do a reduced commission because we're not advertising the property. We're not having to do any of that kind of stuff. We're just handling the legal part up until through closing. I was just looking at the questions here and this keeps moving around. I don't know if your display is moving. Oh, Jim and Cindy left.
Yeah, they said they comment.
I see that.
Have some issues with the internet.
Hey, another real quick question. What are the required types of insurance versus the recommended types of insurance?
There's no required insurance because you don't have a lender. So you can insure or not insure if you want. So if you're buying in a condo complex, the structure will be insured by the association and then you would just insure your contents. If you're buying a standalone home, you would just buy insurance from an insurance company here. AXA is a big one, and I lost Gabriel. Is he still here? Oh,
Yeah, there's like quality. There's like some of them like
Qualitas or something like that. Yeah, there's a few different big insurers. I can put you in touch with the insurance broker. It's way less expensive here because there's no premises liability. Basically, it's a much less litigious society. So lawyers didn't ruin it. So insurance is very affordable. Caroline, do you guys have insurance on your house? I don't know if she's there. Caroline? Caroline?
One.
There we go, unmute. Yes, we do have insurance on our house.
And do you feel like it? Hi.
We
Do you
do, and
feel
in
like it was
fact,
affordable?
I was just gonna say very affordable. And this last hurricane season, we had some damage. We filed a claim and we were paid. So we've even used our insurance.
Yay.
Would you like to share about how much and what company you use? How much a month?
I think we pay somewhere in the neighborhood of $600. We pay it annually. I think it's like $600 annually, $700 annually. US.
And the name of the company that you like? Your insurance company?
I don't know the name of the company, but I can get that back to you through Kim.
Awesome, thank you.
It's probably AXA. I think most people
It's
here. are doing that.
Noemi. I use Noemi.
Yeah, AXXA is the
Noemi?
name of the company.
I'd say exactly.
Spell that, please, Kim. Spell that.
I can send you the broker's name, and it's called AXA, AXXA. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right.
Yeah.
AXA.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And so it's an interesting thing because I would say of all the people I've worked with and know here, probably 20% of people have property insurance. So it's an interesting, it's very different from the US where I think you have it on the day of closing and everything's in place. And I think that's because, you probably house can't be destroyed by fire. If you have water damage, it's concrete blocks, so you just kind of dry it out and repaint it. So there's not, unless there's a real serious hurricane that actually does physical damage to your home, there's not a lot of risk to your actual structure. So it's an interesting, different cultural thing here. Caroline's looking at me
We
like
had
I'm
some
crazy.
glass. Well, no. A lot of people said that to me as well. But we had some damage with the hurricane. So I have glass balconies, glass facing fronted balconies. And 2 of them had damage. I have 2 palapas on different sides of the house that were also damaged. And so they came out and made an assessment. We thought, well, probably we didn't meet our deductible or whatever, but we absolutely did. And it was so easy. They came out, they measured, they came back a couple of days later, installed the glass. I mean, it was just a very easy process for us.
Cool.
Yeah. I hope I don't
Alright.
have to use it again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nice.
Kim, I have a question.
Uh-huh.
So when you mentioned about the townhouses that the HOA covers the outside, do they take care of that? So, but we still take care of the roof, but from an insurance perspective, they cover it?
Well, I'm checking on yours because
Okay.
I agree
Maybe.
that that's weird that they're going to insure the roof, but then you're responsible for maintaining it. So in my experience in condo complexes in town, on the beach side, the association would be responsible for the roof. They're responsible for the outer structure. So, but they're telling us where you're buying that the owner is responsible. So that's what we're trying to figure out, what's happening with your insurance there,
Okay.
right?
I just wanted to make sure we were understanding
Yeah, we need more information on your particular situation.
the situation. Okay.
Last
Keith
question.
and Bruce, did you guys, are you getting insurance? Did you guys get a quote on insurance? Yeah.
Yeah, Kim, we got it already from Noemi, and it's AXA, and for the house that we bought, I think it was the $362 US for the annual premium.
That's not bad.
No, it's very
That's
affordable.
great.
So does that include coverage for a hurricane? You have the $300 and some dollars?
Yeah, our policy includes hurricane damage.
That's very reasonable.
Very.
If you don't mind me asking, where did you purchase?
The agent's name, you can get the information from Kim. I don't even know her. She's our insurance agent for our car insurance and our homeowner's insurance, and I don't know her last name. It's terrible. Her name's.
I have it.
Oh, yeah, okay, perfect.
Yeah, I have her contact info.
Good.
But I also wonder if there are different rates in the Colonia versus the port side, because we have a unique community that we're split, 2 different kind of sections of town. And so there might be some difference in cost or rate based on where you buy.
Well, I think,
I
the
don't
closer
know
to the
at Kim,
beach, I
but
would imagine
it
the more
could be.
expensive. I would think.
You would think, but I'm just saying, I mean, that might be some of the difference. I don't know, Keith and Bruce, because we use the same agency, or would it be maybe square footage, or I don't know
She asked,
what some of the factors are.
Caroline, she asked us when I contacted her to buy the policy, she just asked us the purchase price of the house. So I think to a certain extent, it's tied to the purchase price of the house. And I do agree that I think the properties in Colonia might be a more reasonable premium than over on the beach side.
Yeah, I think so.
So it's just what's in the house, yeah.
Anything else on that? Anyone? Anyone?
Last question of the evening for me, Kim, before I roll out and go watch this football game.
What?
Thank you so much for your time, by the way. In terms of understanding the market in Puerto Morelos and kind of the cost, maturity cycle, can you kind of paint us a picture of kind of our assets inflated right now in price? Are they low? Kind of where have they been the last 10 years? If you could help us understand that, that'd be great.
I cannot. I mean, there's no data, right? I've been here that long. I've been watching the market, but I don't have a percentage that I can give you. I mean, what I can tell you is the price. I mean, in the time that I've been involved in Puerto Morelos, which was basically from 2001 when we got a house here, moved here full time in 2012, sorry. I mean, the prices are not going down. I don't think we're in a bubble. I think that we are in a unique situation. We're much like I'm from Colorado, so I think of us as a ski town in that we are geographically limited, especially in this port area. You know, we've got 3 blocks basically by 10 blocks, and the ocean on one side and the Manglar on the other. And so it just keeps getting more expensive right here. So although I'm hearing people grumble about it, I just don't see the prices coming back down. We went through the mortgage crisis in the US where things didn't sell here for a long time because people couldn't get access to cash to buy, but sellers are still making money on rentals. So they weren't very motivated to let this person in. They weren't motivated to negotiate, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's interesting because the factors that affect a US or Canadian market don't really affect us here, you know, because there's no mortgages.
Interesting.
And because sellers don't have that pressure, it's a different reacting market. I don't know how to say that, but I can't really give you a percentage of increase in value. And it partly because it's, well, in the Colonia, I think Keith and Bruce and I have talked about this, and they've got some anecdotal evidence. I mean, I think the values in the Colonia have, would you say doubled, Keith and Bruce, from what you're hearing? They've certainly skyrocketed in the last three to 5 years, I would say. Yeah.
Kim, I think we've seen an increase in the prices in the Colonia just since we've been here for the last 5 months. I think when we came in the summer with the pandemic and everything going on, I think maybe the prices were a little bit lower, but what I'm seeing now is that they seem to have crept up just in the last 5 months.
Yeah, I agree.
And for me, I would say I'm on the port side, and I've been here 10 years. The maturity, I'm the same length of time as Kim, really. The maturity of my property, Sean, is I would say doubled, is a very comfortable place from my purchase price to what I could retail it for today.
In the last 10 years?
10 years.
Okay. Okay. So you would, if you were looking at this as an investment, you would be looking at it as an opportunity for appreciation?
On the port side, it's very steady. It's not like the skyrocketing that we might be seeing over in the Colonia, because the Colonia now, as Kim said, the port side is limited. We're meeting our Peter principle, but over in the Colonia side, it's just growth upon growth upon growth. And people are starting to Airbnb over there. Used to be only over here, and now over there. We're really becoming like two different, they're acting like two different parts of town, two different kind of heartbeats. But I think you have growth in both. What I see is I have a home in both sides, and I see growth in both sides. Not so fast over here anymore. It kind of already did its really big skyrocket a couple of years ago, and now we're steady and steady. But I think the Colonia is like Keith and Booth are saying, it's really going faster.
Thank you,
from what we see. Yeah.
And also, I guess I would add in a third area, which is the gated communities along the highway, which are Punta Arena, Punta Vista, Regatta, and all the Aldea communities. Those are on fire. They're a new addition to our market in the last 5 years, and they've opened up a price point that just wasn't available here before, right? So you can get a new 3-bedroom house with a little pool for under, it's a couple places under $200,000, but for sure under $250,000 or $300,000. So you can't even get close to that in the port side. So that has opened up a whole new market, and those have, I don't know, Gabrielle, I'm one of them that we sold, I think 3 years ago for $150,000. I'm sure that we could get $250,000 or more for today. Yeah. So it's, those gated communities are on fire, and I wish I would have bought lots when everyone told me to, but I did not. Because the lots have more than tripled in value in some of them. So those are a really good opportunity too. And I think those are only going to go up because they're always going to appeal to Americans and Canadians, especially if you aren't going to, both if you're going to live here full time and if you're not, because if you're not, there's an added sense of security and in fact, added security when you leave your house empty for part of the year. So, you know, the only area that I would say the sellers are getting a little ahead of themselves is like Zona Urbana and Ruta de Cenotes. I don't know if you're familiar with that area, Sean, out, you know, west of town towards the jungle, into the jungle actually. And so that's also becoming more popular. And I think some of the sellers are really asking, I don't know, Gabrielle, if you feel the same, I feel like they're a little bit inflated what they're asking for property out there, but that's where the development's gonna go. So they might not be so crazy. I don't know. I wish I had more statistics to give you, but it just doesn't exist.
That's all right. You're doing your best. It's great.
Yeah. So any more questions on that kind of stuff, guys?
Yeah, is it a seller's market or a buyer's market? Like, is it 50-50? Are there very many houses or condos available?
So there's not much inventory at all. And so I would call this a seller's market right now.
Yes.
Especially in the port side and really in the Colonia. I mean, there's not a ton of property available over there. You think? I see Bruce and Keith shaking their head. Yeah, because we just went through this process of looking. Yeah. So there's not a ton, and Pam did too. There's just not a lot over there.
There's not a lot in the Colonia, especially if you're looking for something bigger than a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. You're looking for something that's a 3-2 or a 4-3. You really don't have much.
Just one,
yeah.
All depends what your budget is too. I mean, if you unlimited budget, then there's more options. But yeah, it was definitely selective.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. There's really just not. I mean, literally, like, there's just not. I mean, I don't even think having more money helps, even in the Colonia, because they just don't exist. They're just not there, or they're not for sale. And it's certainly not for sale on the port side. So it's interesting. It's tricky. I just wanted to touch briefly on immigration, if you guys have some questions about that. And one thing to note is that you can buy a property when you're in the country on a tourist visa. You don't need any kind of special visa in order to purchase property. And the tourist visa is basically that little form that you get when you come in to the airport, and they say, hold on to this half of it. And so don't lose that, because that's your visa. You need to have that to leave the country. And then beyond the tourist visa, there's 2 forms of resident visas. There's a temporary resident visa and a permanent resident visa. And the temporary resident visa lasts 1 year at a time. And that would be important to get if you're going to buy a car. You need to have a temporary resident visa to register a car. If you want to stay longer than 6 months at a time without having to leave the country and re-enter the country, it's good to have at least a 1-year visa. There are some income requirements for that, and you must apply out of Mexico to start the process of getting that visa. And if you get that visa for 4 years, then you can qualify for a permanent resident visa. Also, there are 2 forms of temporary resident visas. There's a retired and a working visa. So if you want to work in Mexico, you're going to need to have a working visa, and you'll have to have a job, and you'll have to have a job sponsor you for a working visa. Unless you open your own corporation and work for your corporation. So that there are some options there. The other visa is a permanent resident visa, and that lasts forever. And it's much more convenient if you own a home here to just go ahead and get the permanent resident visa, if you can qualify for it, because you don't have to deal with reapplying every year. You get all the benefits of having the permanent resident visa, which is basically, you get some discounts, I think, some like more local discount. My favorite benefit is I get to go through the fast line at the airport, immigration. But I mean, many people are now just going directly to permanent if they can. Just get it over with. Don't apply for that visa every year. And if you wait till after you purchase property, it's an easier way to get the permanent resident visa.
But there's a minimum purchase price on that, right? To get the permanent?
So they say that, but in practice, we've had clients at many price points qualify. I mean, you can't only use the purchase, and it's not an automatic qualification, but it helps your package for qualifying. Do you know what I'm saying?
Okay, because we're trying to get the temporary, because when I researched about the permanent, it was a certain purchase price, because we're not, I mean, we work remotely, so that we don't need working visas, but it said a certain purchase price on mine.
Yeah, so what I would encourage you to do, and actually we're gonna have this lawyer with us in a couple weeks. I can put you in touch with an immigration attorney here, and I would talk to them first before you apply for anything, because if you can, it's better to just get the permanent resident visa. Because once you get the temporary resident visa, you're stuck in that lane and you have to keep it. You have to get it for 4 years. You can't do temporary 1 year and then say, oh, but now I decided, or now I can qualify for permanent. They won't do that. So you're on that track for 4 years. And it's a hassle because they don't process quickly. So you have to stay in the country while they're processing it. So if you can get out of the temporary resident visa lane, I would definitely do that. It's just a quicker process.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and I'll put you in touch with her and she can talk you through it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I would add, Kim, the discounts are really good too. If you're a permanent resident, you have a card and you get discounts to all the parks. So when your families all come to visit you and they're excited, you get to go at a less expensive rate. Your golf is cheaper. There's a lot of things you can get. And there's also over 60 senior card that you can get here that gives you discounts. So I think there's benefits for it.
Caroline, how do you get that card? Everyone keeps talking about the card, but they haven't really mentioned how you get that. How do you get a card?
It's if the permanent resident card has to go through immigration, as Kim has mentioned, and it's standing in line. We did the long 5-year plan, but to get the over 60 card, that's an easy. You walk in the door and you pay them a few bucks and then you're done. They issue the card. It's right here in town.
Okay, the discount card, same thing. It's just in town.
Yes, for the over 60, the Enapom card, it's easy.
Okay.
Yeah, just like a driver's license, or you walk in and you go get it. It's easy.
And so, Caroline, that's different than the social health insurance, correct?
It is. Yeah,
Okay.
We don't have social health insurance access on that card at all. No.
All right, I get that confused, and people have asked me about that, and I wasn't sure how that worked.
Well, I'm not over 60. My husband is, so I have some awareness, but I just want to make that clear. Yeah.
Kim, on getting the permanent card as well, because we're not buying a house now, we're buying land. Well, hopefully. Do we use, when we go to apply here in the States, can we use the address of the land, or do we have to use the address of where we'll be renting?
You would use the address. Well, I would ask the attorney, but you can show them your deeds after you've purchased and said, this is what we purchased, and please consider this as part of our package requesting the permanent resident visa. So in practice, I don't know if they need a physical address where you are, you probably need to put where you're living, but in the package, you're going to show them a certified copy of your deed, and they'll do that. It's because I think, I don't know how to say this, but as in many cultures and countries, there are the written rules and there are the actual rules. And so every day I hear stories where the written rules were not followed. And you can find someone, if you get the right person at immigration or whatever, they'll push your application through. So it's always worth a try. That's what I'm saying. Don't just read the rules and say, oh, I don't qualify, so I'm not going to do that. I would always try.
I had heard that it's always easiest, like when you go with a utility bill that says this address on it. So of course, if we're buying land, we won't have a utility bill. The only thing we'll have is the sale. The sale.
Yeah.
But we will have a physical address that says like, yes, we're living here. So the only thing we'll have then is where we're renting at that point.
Yeah, you don't have to be living, you're showing that you've invested in the country and you're showing that you have the means to take care of yourself. And so that's more of the issue for them. You know, they want to, just like the US, you know, they want to make sure if you're coming in the country, you're not going to become a burden on the system.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to use their welfare.
Makes sense.
I guess when we go to follow up in Mexico, we get to have all the information on our land, and if that doesn't work, here's where we're renting in case they want actual address of where we're staying at the time. So have everything ready to go.
Yeah, and I would definitely talk to this attorney. I'll give you her name. Millie Arceo is her name, and I'll put it in our Facebook after this. And she's going to be with us in a couple weeks. But I just tell everyone to at least talk to an attorney first before you submit everything, because there may be a chance that she can help you get that worked through.
Well, that's the other thing too. There are people you can hire to help complete the process once you get in Mexico. So you're not just going to, we have very, very limited Spanish. So it'd be better to go with someone that can help us with the process.
Yeah, it is nice to have that, but the real approval happens in the US. So I would talk to them before you go into a US consul or the Mexican consulate in the US.
Okay.
Because they're the ones who get to say yes or no.
Right.
And only if they say yes do you come to Mexico and complete the process.
Yeah, I mean, we should qualify under their financial guidelines. So really, it's just the whole act. I mean, hopefully.
Then you don't have a problem. You don't have to worry about it. Yeah.
I mean, again, hopefully it's just the whole address thing I was a little confused about.
Yeah. Anything else on immigration, working? I know there's a lot of nomads, what are they called? Digital nomads out there.
Workers.
Workers, yes. You don't need a work visa if you're a digital nomad. It's only if you're working and making money in Mexico.
No,
Hi, Kim,
oh, sorry. I was just going to jump in, Sherry, and I was going to say I worked here for 9 years. I just retired in August, was given a great package because of COVID. I mean, the only silver lining. And so I took it and I'm retired, but I worked here and you can see it sort of looks still like my office. Internet, Zoom calls, all the things I would normally do as a digital nomad. And I did that for many years here and good enough infrastructure and everything to make that happen. So just FYI.
Yeah, we get that question a lot, so thank you. Everyone's asking about the internet.
No.
And it's work tonight. Woohoo!
I'm sorry, I jumped in a Lucy, I think, or something.
No, it's Sherry.
Sherry.
And the quick question I have is that your immigration attorney, that will help with the retiree residency paperwork, where we could actually leave Mexico if approved, and the attorney would continue filing our immigration paperwork.
So I would talk to her before you file your request in the US or wherever you are in Canada or the US. And then when you re-enter, assuming you're approved wherever you are applying, when you re-enter the country, she helps you on the ground here to complete the process.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Does that make sense? Okay. Yeah. And so you typically have to, I should say that, because it is a factor. Once you enter Mexico and initiate the completion of your visa process here, you're required to stay. You should stay in the country. You're supposed to stay in the country. This was a problem over the last year and a half because they were taking forever to process. So people ended up being stuck here for months. And if you had to leave, which many people did, you had to go through this whole rigmarole and get special permission, and it was very stressful and expensive. Now I've heard, I don't know if Keith and Bruce went off, but I've heard they're processing it super fast now. So that's awesome. I mean, people are going from their first appointment to getting their card within a week. And some people got it on the same day. So, but that's something to keep in mind, that you need to stay in the country once you initiate that process until you receive your card. Anything else? What other questions do you guys have?
Kim's
I have
got a
one more
question
question.
about internet with the installing the internet, Kim. And I'm trying to figure out what I would recommend to her, because she needs to have the internet, and it could easily be 4 weeks before the internet would be installed in your home, Pam. I mean, it could be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was just looking for a recommendation on, instead of having to pay for a hotel or Airbnb to get their internet for 4 to 6 weeks to get ours installed, if you had a recommendation for, something.
I mean, our installation's always been really fast.
Really fast.
I mean, we call Izzy on Monday and they're there on Wednesday.
Well, when I talked to a potential property manager today, she said their last one that they were super behind and it took them almost 6 weeks to get it installed.
Wow.
Well, it depends maybe on the company they were using, of course, but I'm with Kim, with Izzy, within a week, they're almost always out here for me.
It's the one for it's the digital, I don't know if it's Telmex or.
Yeah.
Telmex has fiber optic, is that?
Yeah, fiber optic, yeah. She said their last one took almost 6 weeks to get it installed.
Wow.
Well,
that was just a rare exception.
And
that
also,
made me nervous.
you got to know how to play that system. If you're a property manager, nothing should take that long. They got to know the guys to call. I mean, that's part of their job. Poor Gabrielle has done it many, many times. You have to look after them.
But mine, I only scan the information, send them through the website, and I receive a confirmation of the visit. They call me like 2 days later saying like, we're going to be there this day at this time. 1 hour before the appointment time, they call me and say like, we're going to be there like in 20 minutes. We're on the way. So it was pretty easy. And in fact, the same day, I have the contract. I already made the contract for our house, our office, and another friend that asked me, he was in Texas and he asked me to do that as a favor. And there you go. It was very easy. It was, I think, 1 week to get everything done.
And I've also run out in the street, Pam, and actually flagged them down. And if you have a case open and you're ready, and they come in and like, come on in here, and then they come in and they actually do the work. Honestly, this is a small town, and it is Mexico. It's a little different. These are the kinds of things that are different. I've flagged them down on the street and had them come in here. Honestly, I work from home. I'm global. I need to have my internet. I'm just like you. And so I've been here almost 10 years and it's been great. It's not been a problem. I mean, I do have problems periodically, but like you would anywhere.
Okay.
That seems like an extreme situation. Maybe something we don't know about was happening.
Maybe they haven't even pulled the lines over there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, the other thing you can do that people do here, Gabrielle, what are they? You can buy like the little stick, right? They have like hotspots.
Yes.
That's fine.
Also you can go to, sorry, you can go to Telcel and get like a USB, the kind of router, and they can just send you signal to your place. But it's like, we're talking about sometimes maybe less than 6 megabytes. So it's pretty consistent, but you cannot, if you only have like one mobile and one TV, probably works. But more than that, the other thing is like, there's like also like antenna service that they put the antenna like maybe in 4 days and works with 6 megabytes, which is enough for like basic service, not like a very super speed internet, but you never lose like internet or contact, no?
I have 60.
Stopgap, until we can get it. If it really is gonna take 4 to 6 weeks, I'm just looking for an alternatives to work in that short term.
I can't imagine it would take you that long. I would
No.
hope not.
I
Okay.
cannot, I don't know. But it's not very common that someone told you like it's gonna take like 6 weeks because
Okay.
it's either way, even with as Carolyn mentioned, you can find the guy in the car like driving around town and just
I
wait
gotta
them
get
and they come. Yeah, and they just give them like
Get her done,
150 pesos
Pam.
and it's done.
I'll chase them. All right.
And
thank
then
you.
it's
No,
funny
what
because probably you're gonna have internet and then you can do all the, I have a friend that did that's what happened to him. He connected, they came to their house, connect the internet, and then he told me like, please, they want to come, so I already given your number as a contact, so cancel the visit. Okay.
Oh, because he had the guy come.
Because he already has the internet, so it's like,
okay.
okay, I will do it for you.
No, but that was one of my first lessons moving to Mexico 9 years ago. Caroline, you might have had the same experience. Basically, the advice from everyone was find the truck. I'd be
Flag
like,
them
"Oh my
down.
God, my power's out. What do I do? Find the truck. I need water. What do I do? Find the truck. Like, I need
There's a
gas. Go find the truck.
I need my knife sharpened. Wait for you hear the guy with a little whistle going in the
Right.
street. He'll come and sharpen your knives.
It's gotten much better since then, and you can like use the internet for things, but there's still a little bit of that. You chase down the truck and you
There
be nice
is.
to the guy and
There
give him
is.
200 pesos and voila, your internet's hooked up. So
It's true.
funny. You guys, I think we're probably out of time. It's been an hour and a half, and I, of course, didn't get to quite a few things, but I have some time for some questions if you have any right now. Anything? And like I said, like every meeting's different. So if there's something you want us to cover, let us know. We can spend more time on it next time.
This might sound like a silly question, but I was just wondering about trash and recycling. Are they big recycling like in these gated communities? You get to recycle stuff?
So there is recycling, but it's twice a month and you take it to the recycling center.
Okay.
They set up I haven't done it actually. Caroline, have you done it?
Yeah, I've got a, well, actually in my remodel, I'm setting up a recycling bin station in my kitchen, which I'm very excited about. So yeah, I'll be taking I take the cans, go to my housekeepers, which they take and recycle and are very grateful for. And then the plastic, I take it once a month down to the city center, the village center when they come.
So it's only
Plastic.
once a month that you can do that.
Twice a month.
Yeah, twice a month. And we don't have glass and, it's pretty limited, but you do what you can.
But it's getting better.
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll be, yeah. But right now there's no pickup. Well, I'm lying because there is a company you can call to come pick up your recyclables. I'll get you that information.
Thank you.
Lois, you're very quiet. Lois is depressed because she had to leave Puerto Morelos.
Kim, can you hear me?
Hi, Sonia.
So we are in Punta Vista, which is a gated community on the port side. And so they do have bins for us. Recycle bins.
Oh, that's exciting.
So that's nice for the people that do live there in that gated community. We sort them out, that way, and we just put everything in its own place. So I think that's nice.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's in Punta Vista. So I don't know if all the other gated communities do that. But in
I haven't seen it, but I mean, I would imagine if one does it, the rest will follow suit, no?
Yeah, hopefully, yes.
Yeah, one day when we were in Punta Rena, I saw some really big like trash bins, but I wasn't sure if they were recycling and trash or just trash, but maybe it was both. That would be nice. Does anyone know how much I'm trying to do like a budget workup. How much is like trash? That's really the only thing I don't know, like the cost on.
How much what?
It's trash.
It's part of your property taxes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you don't pay for it.
Great. Love that.
Yeah. So we didn't cover that real quick. Annual property taxes are very low.
Yes.
If anyone's wondering.
It's again a percentage of your estimated price of your house? How does that work?
You can kind of get an idea of what they will be by doing 0.0028 times your purchase price, your registered purchase price.
So, so since we're buying land, it will only be on the land, right?
Right now, until you build a home and register that construction. Sonia probably went through that because you built.
Yeah, so what's
You-
funny
yeah.
with that is that the property taxes or the predial, as what they refer to, is more if you have a lot. But once you build and have a house, it's like cut in half. It's so weird.
Yeah.
So first you go by your land cost, and then once the house is constructed, then you tell them how much that is, and they go by the price of just the house.
But the difference in the price between just the lot and when you do have a house is like almost half. I mean, like for the lot, I think it runs around like, I think 4,000 pesos, more or less. And then once you have the house, it's more like 2,000 or 3,000, you know, it's certainly half of what you would have to pay between a lot and when there is an actual house there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they're trying to encourage you to build, right? They want to make it not attractive to keep your lot empty.
Exactly.
No problem there.
You have a plan.
Not just dirt.
Yeah. What else, you guys?
Oh, anything?
Tim and Linda. Hi. You're very quiet over there.
Oh, Jenny Nelson's here. She's going out with you this weekend, huh?
Yeah, oh, did she say that? Yes.
She did.
There she is.
Kim, we're ready to rock and roll.
All right. Hi, new neighbors, maybe.
We have a better connection tonight. We tried to do a virtual walkthrough, you guys, and it was awful.
It was rough.
It
was terrible.
We need to be in person, which is why we're coming this weekend. So it's all good.
Yay.
Good deal.
Yay. Yeah, and you know, we're always available for one-on-one chats if this didn't answer your questions, you have more questions. I'm loving Zoom. Thank you guys for doing this. How do you feel about this format for moving to Mexico Monday? You like it?
Very good. And Kim, you did a great job with it. If this is your first time, not everybody does so well their first time.
Thank you so much. I was really nervous. I was like, coffee, wine, coffee, wine.
I prefer La Serena.
I know it is more fun to meet each other in person and just relax and get to know other people, but this is the next best thing, I think. So I like it. I like being able to see you guys, and it feels better than just talking into a camera and hoping someone's out there like listening.
And Lois, when are you coming back with my salt? That's what I want to know.
No, I thought it was Nilla wafers.
Oh, I'll take those too.
Uh-huh. I didn't know about the salt. I'll add that to the list. What kind?
You guys, I have
you
to.
had an American sandwich, or American cheese sandwich yet?
I have not. So Lois, we had what did we have? It was a Christmas, party on Zoom, and I was saying that you can't believe how expensive Velveeta cheese is here, and it's not even really cheese, but it's like, I don't know, Gabrielle. We looked; it was something like $20 for a little Velveeta thing, and sometimes you just want a comfort grilled cheese sandwich. So Lois was kind enough to bring me a block of Velveeta cheese, which I have not made anything with yet, and Old El Paso taco seasoning mix, which is my favorite. Gabrielle wants to divorce me about that, but
Not yet, honey. Don't worry.
sorry. It's good. It's
good.
how I know tacos, which is not at all legitimate or authentic.
She's gonna bring me Nilla wafers because they were $45 on Amazon Mexico to buy a little
insane.
11 ounces of Nilla wafers.
Wow.
No rumballs this year.
Nilla wafers, my gosh.
I know. That's not fair. Okay,
You're
guys.
talking about Nilla wafers. These people.
These people. That's
These
us.
people.
See?